The 4th of August changed me a lot. I was working in Ashrafiyya when the ceiling of the office fell on us. I am still dealing with the trauma. The explosion didn't destroy only the port. It also destroyed everything beautiful inside us. It destroyed our memories and our...
Let's bring in now Sami Atallah, who's a political economist and also former director of the Lebanese Center for Policy Studies. Thank you so much for joining us here on this special program. Now, the World Bank has called this crisis in Lebanon right now one of the world's worst economic collapses in 150 years. More than half the country is below the poverty line. Where is the bottom for Lebanon's economy? How much worse will it get?
Oh, unfortunately, it will get much worse. And I think what the World Bank did not do is rank the political establishment, the Lebanese government, and the central bank for mismanaging a whole crisis and impoverishing a whole population, because they have deliberately doing so and failing to actually stop the impoverishment and the emigration of the society, and this will have tremendous impact on Lebanese economy and society. Unfortunately, we are ruled by incompetent and criminal establishment that actually is not doing anything about the crisis. So when you ask me about what the rock bottom is, it's very deep, because nothing has happened in the last 18 months from the date of the actually collapse, and I'm talking about the financial collapse, whereas they should have done many things, including putting capital control, restructuring the banks, distributing the losses in a fair way, and they haven't done so. In fact, they have strangled the economy to benefit the very few 1%, to benefit and salvage the banking sector at the expense of the whole population, that is, some of whom are literally dying, and some have actually died in the explosion, and some are actually suffering on a daily basis to make ends meet. This is an economy that has simply collapsed. 30 years of an economic growth that a large part of it was an illusion, and now the whole card is actually falling apart.
And Sami, who from the international community is helping Lebanon? Because sometimes it really looks like Lebanon is alone, or has been for the past year.
It's a very important question and a tricky one, because on one hand, the international community has come to support Lebanon, and as early as maybe 1997 or 2001, and all the meetings or conferences that were held in Paris, better known as the Paris I, Paris II, or the SAD conference. So we see an interest by the international community to actually support Lebanon. However, we see two other things: that you have a political establishment that has failed to actually use this aid. In fact, and what they have done is they kick the can away, in the sense of actually avoiding the reforms thanks to this aid that was coming to Lebanon. And this brings another question, is that is the international community helping the political establishment, or did they help them to survive that long, whereby in the last 20 years, many of the reforms that should have been done in 2001, they have yet to be done. So we've got a political establishment that's actually fooling the international community, and some of the international community are actually supportive of this political establishment. And here we are. I think they've called it a bluff now. They said we're not going to help the Lebanese government anymore because they haven't actually done any of the reforms. So now we're at a stage where you've got the international community saying, look, we're going to give you money, but we've got a political establishment that doesn't want to do these reforms because it wants to protect its interests. So now there's this major sort of, Lebanon is at the key juncture here in terms of where do we go from here. In fact, because this government cannot do the reforms, it actually put us in the problems. Any aid that's going to come through this government will be either siphoned or mismanaged, as we've seen in so many cases in the last 20 years.
And, as you speak, there is a conference taking place in Paris. Your thoughts on that, and why that is taking place? If Lebanon is at this juncture that you've pointed out.
Look, the international community, sure. Yeah. Yeah. Look, the international community cannot be classified as one homogeneous group, right? You've got different countries, they have different interests. There's all the geopolitical factors into this, right? So we see countries that want to help Lebanon. In fact, you see some actually want to help the political establishment because they want Lebanon not to collapse, because the collapse of the Lebanese society and the economy has very detrimental impact, obviously, on Europe and on the region. So there's obviously these political considerations that's taking place. You've got the international community trying to say, look, we're coming here to help you, and they're trying to support. And I think this is how we actually see the conference that was held today. We saw it actually 9 months ago. In fact, they did it after the blast as well, or a few months after the blast. And now I think we reached a stage where the situation is so bad, some of it is going for humanitarian. This is where we've reached. Lebanon, which was actually upper high income, now is in need to buy medicine, fuel, just for its population to survive. And this
Sami,
is how bad the situation is. So the international community...
This is my next question. If you could bring some of these examples to life, because sometimes, we speak about these numbers in Lebanon, but when you hear of the humanitarian examples, they're really striking. I'm just thinking now of some examples of people that were middle class a year ago, sending their children to the streets. This is an interview that really struck me very recently with an aid organization for children. What are some of the things that have struck you about the real life impact of the economy?
Absolutely. Yeah. Look, it's as basic as, and I tell you my personal story as well in this. Here we are trying to get power into our apartments, power supply, because the EDL, the electricity of the government, of the state, has collapsed. The generators don't have diesel to actually give us power supply. So we're actually trying to figure out where do we go next for plan C now. Either we try to get batteries or we get solar system, trying to actually survive this. So people are actually struggling with the most basic things, getting power, electricity, getting water, because obviously that's being impacted, getting medicine to survive. And a lot of the middle class that you're talking about is no longer the middle class. They actually fell into poverty. They can't even afford to actually buy a power supply. And just to give you an example, the power supply to get 5 amps of power supply a month is like 3 million Lebanese pounds, which is like 6 times or 5 times the minimum wage, just to pay actually a power supply. This is insane and inhumane, and you have no one at the government level doing anything about it. And that's what I call criminal, because they've left the people to their own devices to make ends meet, where people are even unable to afford the most basic rights. And I'm not even talking about education. I'm just talking now about infrastructure. I'm talking about electricity and water and medicine and health. It's an end of an era, obviously, the collapse and the free fall of the economy, which will have a major implication in the short term, but also medium term and long term, because it's going to impoverish and change the social fabric of the country for a long time.
Sami Atallah, thank you so much for speaking to us today on this 1-year anniversary of the Beirut port explosion. We appreciate your time.